Hello, Leo. The divine fire within you already knows this. But let me say it out loud. God is warning you. And it's time to shield your energy before what's coming. If you've been feeling more sensitive than usual, sensing things before they happen, or catching yourself in deep thought about people, situations, or decisions, this is not coincidence. This is divine preparation. This video is not just a reading. It's a spiritual alert. It's a shield, crafted in light, passed to you by the universe, because something is shifting. And you, Leo, are meant to stand strong, not shaken. Welcome to Eternal Mindfulness. Here, we don't just read stars and symbols, we listen deeply to the whispers of the soul. And today's message is an urgent one. If you're watching this now, it means your energy is awakening to the subtle signals being sent your way. There is something approaching, a situation, a confrontation, a shift, that requires you to be protected. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, and energetically. Leo, your light is magnetic. It heals, it leads, it inspires. But right now, that same light is attracting attention from places and people who may not have your highest good in mind. This is not meant to scare you, it's meant to empower you. Because you have something they don't: awareness, preparedness, and spiritual protection. Take a deep breath. Feel that? That's your intuition confirming the truth in these words. You've been given signs already. Maybe it's been repeating numbers. Maybe it's dreams. Maybe it's a conversation that felt off, or a place you used to love that suddenly feels heavy. These are not random. In the next few minutes, we're going to uncover the deeper message behind this warning, and more importantly, how to activate your divine shield so you're not just safe, you're thriving through what's coming. But first, I want to ask you to pause, and do one thing. Comment below an angel number that's been showing up for you lately. Or, if you feel called, type the first number that comes into your mind right now. That number is your personal frequency, a signal to the universe that you are listening, awake, and ready. Before we go deeper, allow me a moment of genuine gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for being here. For watching, for commenting, for liking, for subscribing, but more than that, for showing up for your soul. For choosing growth over fear. For listening to what most people ignore. Every single time you engage with this space, you help grow Eternal Mindfulness into more than a YouTube channel. You help grow a spiritual sanctuary where truth meets destiny. Your presence here tells me that you are ready. Not just to hear a message, but to own your path. So don't go anywhere. What I'm about to share with you may shift how you see the past, and prepare you for what's rising up in the near future. Leo, this is not just protection. It's divine instruction. Let's unlock the power that's already been placed inside you, before the world tries to shake it. Take a deep breath. Let your energy settle. We begin now. There are moments in life when your presence alone shifts the atmosphere, when the simple act of walking into a room brings attention, emotion, and even unspoken expectations. Leo, you were born under the sign ruled by the sun, the very heart of the zodiac. And like the sun, your light gives warmth, inspiration, and life. But as the sun rises, it also casts long shadows. The brighter you shine, the more visible you become, not just to those who appreciate you, but also to energies that seek to feed off your radiance without giving anything in return. Lately, the cosmos has been moving in a way that gently but powerfully nudges you toward greater awareness. The sun in your chart represents your core identity, your life force. But when it forms challenging aspects with intense planetary players like Pluto or Saturn, it can feel like your natural confidence is being tested. You might feel misunderstood, overlooked, or even drained, not because your light has dimmed, but because it's being absorbed by people, places, or responsibilities that no longer align with your truth. Pluto, the planet of transformation and hidden power, may be stirring beneath the surface of your relationships or self-perception, asking you to investigate where your energy is leaking. Saturn, the teacher of structure and boundaries, may be pushing you to reclaim your time, attention, and peace. These aren't punishments, they're invitations. Invitations to take your light seriously. To stop giving it away to those who don't know how to hold it. This is where the energy of the Hierophant speaks directly to you. In tarot, this archetype symbolizes tradition, inner truth, and sacred responsibility. Not as a rigid figure, but as a spiritual guide who reminds us that our wisdom isn't something we need to search for outside, it already lives within us. You, Leo, carry an old soul's memory. You have instincts that reach far deeper than you realize. And the Hierophant calls you to honor your inner teacher, the quiet, steady voice that knows when something feels just a little off, even when everything looks fine on the surface. It's easy to overlook that voice when you're surrounded by noise, external expectations, social dynamics, emotional obligations. But there is a quiet clarity that can only be heard in stillness. When you begin to notice the subtle signs, a tightness in the chest around certain people, fatigue after certain conversations, or a sense of disconnection in familiar places, these are not random. They are your body's way of telling you that your light is being used instead of honored. And that's a boundary worth protecting. Sometimes, protecting your energy isn't about confrontation or escape. It's about presence. About anchoring so deeply in your own sense of being that no one else's projections can pull you out of alignment. Imagine a candle that flickers in the wind, not because it's weak, but because it hasn't been shielded. You are that candle. Your light is resilient, but it still needs space, stillness, and care. There is a practice, subtle and ancient, of recognizing when we're overextending ourselves, and gently calling the energy back home. Not with judgment, but with compassion. Just as a flower closes at night not out of fear, but out of natural rhythm, you too are allowed to retreat inward and conserve your warmth. So if lately you felt tired, not the kind of tired that rest fixes, but soul tired, consider that your energy may be stretched too thin. This isn't a flaw in you. It's an indicator that your light is sacred. And sacred things deserve to be protected. The universe, through these gentle planetary pressures, is not asking you to shrink, only to become more intentional. To let your light serve its highest purpose, not burn out trying to be everything to everyone. What would it feel like to glow for yourself first, and allow everything else to align from there? Not every battle is meant to be fought. And not every wound is meant to be reopened just to prove you survived it. Sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is simply let go. For a Leo, whose heart is deeply loyal and whose pride often carries the scars of silent endurance, forgiveness can feel like surrender. But the truth is, real forgiveness isn't weakness. It's a return to your rightful throne. It's choosing peace without needing permission. You see, when you carry resentment, it becomes a kind of invisible armor, one that feels protective at first, but over time begins to weigh you down. It hardens the softness in your chest. It dims the warmth in your light. And yet, because Leo energy is so heart-centered, you often hold on to pain the same way you hold on to love, with depth, with loyalty, and with everything you've got. But holding on doesn't always serve you. In fact, it can keep you emotionally entangled in stories that no longer define who you are becoming. Forgiveness, especially for you, dear Leo, is not about letting someone off the hook. It's about setting yourself free from the mental loops that keep you bound to the past. Think of it like this: your mind is the sky, and your thoughts are the clouds. Resentment is a storm that lingers. It might have passed, but it left thunder in your memory. Forgiveness is choosing to let the sky clear again, not for anyone else's comfort, but so your own light can shine through, unobstructed. This is also where self-responsibility comes into play. The idea that you are not responsible for how others treat you, but you are responsible for how long you allow their behavior to take up space in your heart. Forgiveness doesn't mean you condone what happened. It doesn't mean you have to invite certain people back into your life. It simply means you're no longer interested in carrying their shadow. There's a quiet practice in noticing the thought, the story, the old pain that arises, and instead of reacting, just watching it. Letting it pass through like a wave. This kind of soft awareness creates space for clarity, and from clarity, healing begins. You realize you don't have to fix the past. You only have to stop reliving it. Energy-wise, holding on to anger, betrayal, or regret creates static. That static distorts the signals you're sending out into the world. And according to the law of attraction, what you hold internally becomes what you attract externally. When you forgive, you declutter your vibration. You make space. And in that space, goodness enters, often in ways you didn't expect. Think about it. How many opportunities have quietly passed you by because you were still energetically tied to something that hurt you? How many moments of joy have felt muted because a part of you was still defending an old wound? Forgiveness doesn't erase those stories, but it releases the charge they once held. You take back the emotional energy and reinvest it in your present. So maybe today, you start with something small. A name, a memory, a conversation that still echoes in your chest. Write down 3 things you're willing to forgive, not all at once, but just enough to feel a shift. Don't rush. Let it be honest. Let it be imperfect. Let it be real. You don't have to announce it. You don't have to explain it to anyone. But within yourself, you'll know. You'll feel the crown settle a little more firmly on your head, not because you've conquered someone else, but because you've chosen to no longer let the pain define your strength. And that is the most powerful kind of royalty. Sometimes, the universe has a quiet way of balancing things, not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through small, almost imperceptible shifts that realign what's been out of place for far too long. If you've been sensing that something has been off, that you've been giving more than you receive, or that your efforts have not been seen in their full light, know this: the scales are moving. And they are moving in your favor. The energy of justice, when it shows up in your field, is not about revenge or retribution. It's about restoration. It speaks to the sacred law of cause and effect, not as a punishment, but as a return to harmony. For Leo, this can feel especially significant, because so much of your heart is poured into everything you do. You love hard. You show up fully. And yet, there have been moments when it felt like your loyalty was met with silence, your generosity was taken for granted, or your presence was misunderstood. Now, that quiet force of rebalancing is underway. Justice doesn't always look the way we expect. Sometimes it arrives through letting go. Sometimes it's a difficult conversation that finally brings clarity. Sometimes it's a door closing so another, far better aligned, can open. These moments may feel jarring at first. They may even stir discomfort. But beneath them is an intelligent rhythm. A return to center. A quiet voice saying, "This is the truth you've known all along." In numerology, the number 8 is associated with this principle. It's the symbol of infinity turned upright, signifying power, balance, and the cycles of what you put out returning in kind. But more than that, it invites reflection. Are you holding on to something that has long tipped your internal scale? A belief that you must always be strong, even when tired? A habit of prioritizing others even when your own cup runs dry? A memory of being wrong that still whispers in your mind, even when the day seems peaceful? True justice often starts from within. Not with anyone else apologizing, but with you deciding to release what has weighed too heavily on your spirit. Ask yourself gently, where in my life have I allowed imbalance to go unchecked? Where have I quietly told myself, "It's fine," when I knew deep down it wasn't? This is not about blame, it's about honesty. Because only when we are honest with ourselves can we begin the process of reclaiming our alignment. There's a simple teaching that says when you stop resisting what is, balance begins to emerge naturally. Like a body of water returning to stillness once the winds pass. When you stop trying to control the narrative, or fix what isn't yours to fix, the story begins to write itself with more grace. What was heavy begins to lift. What felt scattered begins to settle. Leo, your strength is not only in your fire, it's in your ability to witness, to discern, and to choose. This is your moment to choose fairness, starting with yourself. Maybe that means setting a boundary you've avoided. Maybe it means forgiving yourself for past decisions made in survival mode. Or maybe it simply means sitting quietly with the truth that you deserve balance, not as a reward, but as a birthright. And when you begin to walk in that awareness, when your actions and values are aligned, life will respond. Opportunities will reflect your integrity. People will mirror your respect. And slowly, steadily, your external world will begin to match the inner clarity you've cultivated. What part of your life, if you were truly honest, is longing for that kind of justice right now? Letting go is rarely comfortable. It asks something of us, not just a decision, but a surrender of what's known, familiar, and once deeply tied to our identity. And yet, without letting go, we create no space for anything new to enter. The energy of endings, especially for someone with Leo's heart, can feel like betrayal, a quiet ache, a mourning of the investment made. But not all endings are losses. Some are doorways disguised as closures. Some are transitions wrapped in silence, carrying within them the momentum of rebirth. When the death card appears in tarot, it doesn't speak of destruction. It speaks of necessary transformation. It asks one simple question: what are you still holding on to? Not because it serves you, but because it's familiar. Maybe it's a relationship, a habit, a belief, or even a version of yourself you've long outgrown. In the astrological realm, transits that activate your fixed energy often challenge your resistance to change. But they do so lovingly, not to punish, but to help you evolve. What we cling to out of fear often becomes the very thing that blocks our abundance. True richness doesn't only show up in your bank account. It arrives in your mental clarity, your peace, your relationships, and your willingness to receive life as it is, not just as you wish it to be. But receiving is impossible when your hands, or your heart, are still full of the past. There's an old idea that a clenched fist can hold nothing. Only when you release can you begin to truly receive. Think about the things you continue to carry. Not just physical objects, but emotional attachments, grudges, outdated dreams, or self-expectations you no longer resonate with. These are subtle weights. You may not notice them daily, but they slow you down, they tangle your clarity, they keep your frequency bound to what was instead of what could be. Letting go is not an act of erasure. It is an act of honoring. You acknowledge what something once meant, and then you gently release it, so your energy can return to flow. This is where energetic detox comes in. It's not just about green juices or salt baths, though those help. It's about observing what drains you, not judging, just noticing. It might be a certain conversation, a social media pattern, a recurring self-critical thought. It might be clutter in your home or chaos in your routine. Start there. What would it feel like to create more stillness, to edit your environment the way a sculptor chisels away the excess, not to destroy the stone, but to reveal the form inside? There is a natural rhythm in life, like the breath: inhale, exhale, take in, let go. When you exhale, you don't grieve the breath. You trust that more will come. Life asks for the same trust. That in letting go, you are not becoming less. You are becoming available for something more aligned, more grounded, and more alive. Leo, your energy is regal, and you were not meant to be weighed down by things that dim your inner fire. There is something within you ready to be reborn. But first, you must loosen your grip on what was. Ask yourself gently, what am I still carrying that's no longer mine to hold? And if I placed it down, even for a moment, what might rise in its place? Just beyond the space where letting go takes place, there's an opening, a subtle but powerful shift where new energy quietly begins to gather. When you clear what no longer belongs, you don't just create absence, you create a doorway. And in this very moment, Leo, that doorway is standing open in front of you. But here's the truth: the universe may offer the opportunity, but you're the one who has to walk through it. The energy of the Ace of Pentacles speaks of grounded beginnings, not fleeting chances or wishful hopes, but real, tangible gifts. A new job, a new stream of income, a new commitment that aligns with your purpose. These things are not fantasies. They are already forming in the unseen, drawn toward the frequency you're now choosing to hold. But like planting a seed, they need care, intention, and belief to take root. You can't just look at the soil and wish for the fruit. You have to plant, water, and trust. This is where presence becomes powerful. When your energy is clear, not scattered in the past or stretched too far into worry, you become magnetic. You begin to attract not from desperation, but from alignment. And that's when the door opens wider. That's when the right people appear, the email shows up, the idea lands at the perfect moment. Not by accident, but because you were finally ready to see it. Leo, you are ruled by the sun, the symbol of vitality, leadership, and creation. You don't need to chase abundance. You simply need to remember that you are a source of it. But remembering isn't always enough. Action is the bridge. What are you doing today that your future self will thank you for? Are you moving in the direction of clarity, or are you still tangled in the habits and distractions that dilute your power? There's a practice I invite you to do, one that's both energetic and practical. Write down 3 things you'd like to manifest over the next 30 days. Not vague wishes, but specific, meaningful desires. Maybe it's a certain amount of money. Maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe it's simply peace in a space that's been noisy for too long. Write them as if they're already happening. Speak them into your day. Move as if they're on their way. Because the moment you align your thoughts, words, and actions, you become the key that unlocks the gate. Sometimes, abundance doesn't rush in like a wave. It trickles, gently, to see if you're really ready. If you'll stay consistent. If you'll honor the opportunity. And the more you show up, with gratitude, with discipline, with focus, the more it responds. Not because you're proving your worth, but because you're expanding your capacity to receive. This kind of readiness isn't about perfection. It's about openness. About living each day as if the portal is already here, because in many ways, it is. You may not control the timing, but you do influence the invitation. And right now, life is quietly asking, are you willing to walk through? So pause for a moment. Breathe into that possibility. Ask yourself, not what you want, but what you're ready to receive. And if your answer feels like a yes, even a trembling one, type the words, I'm ready to walk through the portal of abundance, in the comments. Let that be your declaration, your starting step, your signal to the universe that you are no longer waiting, you are choosing. And maybe now, after all we've walked through together in this space, the realization quietly settles in, your greatest shield has never been external. It's always been the way you see yourself. The way you know, without question, that you are worthy of protection, of peace, of more than what you've settled for. You don't need to defend your light. You just need to honor it. The moment you begin to trust your energy, trust your timing, trust your knowing, you become immovable. You don't need to convince anyone of your worth. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You don't need to apologize for wanting more, needing less, or walking away from what no longer speaks your language. Your sovereignty doesn't ask for permission, it only asks for presence. So ask yourself, softly but honestly, where in your life have you been asking for permission, when you were always meant to give yourself the blessing? What are you still protecting that's already over? And what might open up if you decided, just for today, to be your own safest place? Forgiveness, clarity, release, and abundance, these are not distant concepts reserved for the lucky. They are energies, always available, waiting for your invitation. And if this video found its way to you today, perhaps it's because something inside you is already opening, already softening, already choosing. So let this be more than a video. Let it be a turning point. Not because of what I said, but because of what you felt. And because of what you now know you're capable of choosing from here. Take a breath with me, right now. Let it be deep, real, unfiltered. Let it remind you, you are alive, you are powerful, and you are still writing your story. This chapter doesn't have to look like the last one. It can be brighter. It can be bolder. And most of all, it can be yours. Now, I invite you, if anything in this message resonated with you, to share in the comments the angel number you've been seeing lately, or simply a word that captures how you're feeling right now. This isn't just interaction, it's alignment. It's you claiming your space in this sacred circle of growth we're building together. And if you found this reading supportive, inspiring, or even just comforting in some way, please consider giving it a like, subscribing to Eternal Mindfulness, and sharing it with someone who might be walking through their own silent transformation right now. Because real light, the kind that heals, protects, and uplifts, becomes even stronger when it's shared. You are not alone in this. You never were. And today, you took one powerful step closer to becoming the version of you that no longer waits for peace, but chooses it. So go ahead, Leo. Wear your light. Walk with your shield. And move forward, not in defense, but in full awareness of your worth. The portal is open. The choice is yours.